Then from you too.
Well, I'm Dustin Zarni. I'm, as the professor said, I'm the Democratic Elections Commissioner. There's also a Republican Elections Commissioner, and that's important to keep in mind. How many here are from New York State? So there's a fair amount of you from not here. So let me just explain to you how elections work in New York State briefly, so you know who you're interacting with when you go to the polls. New York is what's called a bipartisan election state, so we have two commissioners in each county, one Republican, one Democrat, and we have to agree on everything to go forward with any kind of election decision, down from the budget to where the polling places are to whether we count a ballot if a ballot is in dispute. This is also what happens at a polling place. You have teams of inspectors, half of which are Republican, half of which are Democrat. The number ranges anywhere from 4 to 8, and sometimes up to 12, depending on how large the polling site is and how much traffic we're expecting that day. But larger sites have what's called poll site managers. These are people that the Board of Elections assigns ahead of time because we know it's a larger site, and we assign people that know how to run a site. On the smaller sites, they have election chairs that are elected that day by the polling teams that are there, of somebody who's going to be in charge of the site for the day. So that's what happens at some of the smaller 1 ED, 2 ED sites. They elect somebody at 3 EDs. EDs are election districts or more. There are poll site captains. And I mentioned that because those are the people that you're going to interact with the most, either the election chair or the poll site managers that are there that day. Now, what we ask for Newhouse students or any media, you're going to be under the same rules that any media that we have are that day. And what we've decided in Onondaga County is we give pretty open access to media inside of a polling site. You can go inside and shoot B-roll. You can, if you're doing photography, you can shoot photography. You can't, however, interact with voters inside the site. There's a thing called a distance marker. It's about 100 feet from the poll site, and it's clearly marked. Outside that distance marker is where you can approach voters and take interviews, or even do 1 shots or 2 shots, whatever you're doing in your packages. You could do all of that outside of the distance marker. Inside the distance marker, all you can do is B-roll or photography in a silent manner that's not interrupting the voting process. Things that you cannot photograph: ballots. Now, this has been going around since 2008, since the advent of the selfie and all of that. But people would take pictures of themselves with their filled out ballots. That's okay. It's okay for someone to take their own picture. It is not okay, it's actually illegal for you to take a picture of their ballot, even if they're giving you permission. So, do not take a picture of somebody filling out their ballot. Do not take a picture where they can be seen filling out their ballot. We take the anonymity of the vote very seriously. Somebody wants to take their own picture, that's fine. But you can't do it, okay? You can't ask them who they voted for, but if they want to tell you, that's fine. You're reporters, so you probably won't do this, I would hope, but we do not allow buttons or t-shirts or campaign paraphernalia inside of a polling site. So you may want to be very outspoken that day, but when you go inside that polling site, you can't have a button, t-shirt, sticker. They will ask you to take it off. What you should have, Lisa, is your Newhouse label. This will let us know that you're media, okay? Because you're the only other people that we allow in the poll site besides a voter and the poll siters, and the poll watchers and the people working the polls are media, and we say credentialed media, so you'll be credentialed media. They know to look for this, most of the poll workers. A few other things then and I'll take some questions as well. But a few other things to keep in mind. If a poll manager or if an election chair asks you to do something, do it. They're in charge that day. If you feel like they're being rude or they're not allowing you to do the things that I told you could do, you can call our office. You can talk to me or somebody in the office and let me know what's going on. Don't try to interrupt the voting process by insisting that you can do something. I'll call them. I've done it. You know, I mean, remember these poll watchers they do get paid and they do get trained every year, but they only work 1 or 2 days a year, so they forget things. Also, they tend to be a little older, so they tend to. It's a very long day for them. They're there from 5 a.m. to about 10 p.m. So they get a little crankier later in the day. So if you go earlier, they're going to be a lot better. Rush times for voting, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. A lot of people are voting. Noon to 1 p.m. A lot of people are voting. And 5 to 8 p.m. A lot of people are voting. And the polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. If any of your projects involve getting results, they're available on our website. As soon as we get them, they go live to our website, and that's ongov.net/elections. So you don't have to be calling down or stopping down to the Board of Elections. In fact, if you stop down to the Board of Elections after 9 o'clock, no one's going to be answering the door because we're all unloading trucks in the back. And everything goes live on that website. So if you're looking for results, that's where it is. If a race is sometime in the middle of the day on election day, on our Facebook page, go like our Facebook page, helps me out. Onondaga County Board of Elections is on Facebook. We will post throughout the day if there's any issues. We will post that on our Facebook page. But the most important thing we post is around 6 o'clock. We will post the absentee ballot numbers throughout the county. So especially if you're following the mayoral race and you want to know if it's too close to call, we will have those numbers on our Facebook page. So you don't have to call for it, it'll be there. So around 6 o'clock. There'll be a post on our Facebook page with the countywide and citywide absentees. What else? If there's an emergency where a poll site is closed, there will be notices up there. We've had that happen. We had a gas leak one time in a building. We moved down the road to another poll site. Those are things that the Board of Elections has dealt with and will deal with. Don't all go to the same poll site. Now we have a great poll site on campus now over in the Architecture Center, and that's where all students on campus, for the first time this year, all students that are in dorms on campus can vote over there in the Huntington Center. We made a change so that could happen, so they're not voting in different places. Problem is, it's a local election. You're not going to see a lot of traffic over there. It's just not going to be a lot of students. I would love that for me to be proven wrong on that, but the history shows that in odd number years, and especially non-presidential years, the traffic goes down. So if you're looking for places where there's a lot of traffic, where you're trying to find a lot of voters, you go to our website again, ongov.net/elections. In the candidate information tab, there's a list of polling places throughout Onondaga County. Look for the ones that have more EDs in it. Things that I throw off the top of my head: Nottingham High School, just down the road, Blessed Sacrament. If you want to go outside the city, Believers Chapel and the Solvay Youth Center. These are all our bigger poll sites. If they have more EDs in it, there are bigger poll sites. They tend to be bigger outside the city than inside the city, because outside the city is more drivable traffic. There's less pedestrian traffic, so we tend to have bigger poll sites out there where people drive to. Inside the city, we have more of an emphasis on walking and neighborhood poll sites. So the poll sites are smaller, 2, 3 EDs, as opposed to 4, 5, 6 EDs that you might see out in the suburbs. So, you know, and again, it is a local year, even though there is a mayoral election. The last mayoral election in 2013, we had 24% turnout for a local year. Now, it'll be a little different this year because that election, the mayor was not opposed by the Democratic mayor was not opposed by a Republican. There is a much more contested race this time around. There's 4 candidates. And, you know, there's a Democrat, the general consensus is that the Democrat and independent Ben Walsh are the people that are fighting for that, with Green Party Howie Hawkins and the Republican Laura Levine in the lower digits in most of the polling. So it's actually kind of a neat little story. Either way, Syracuse is going to make history. We're either going to elect our first Latino candidate or our first independent candidate for mayor. So it's an interesting story, and a byline that most of the regular media hasn't picked up. None of the 4 candidates for mayor have ever held elective office. They've never done it, none of them. So some of them have run a lot, like Howie. Howie's our local hero. He's run about 20 times or something like that, but he's never won. He's never caught that rabbit. So, you know, so nobody's actually held elective office. Ben has never done it, Juanita's never done it, and Laura Levine have never done it. So that's an interesting story that's out there as well. So I'll take any questions. Any questions about covering voters at the polling place? Yes?
You said that we can't get someone filling out their ballots, but I mean that we can't get someone like far away in the booth.
Oh, sure, yeah. If you can't see it, if you're like looking at a shoulder or something like that. But obviously, rules apply about faces, you know, you want to get permissions of people that, but if you're doing stuff off the back, B-roll off the back, they have privacy booths, so if you're on the side, you can't really see anything. That's a good angle. If you're shooting right in the back, you might be able to see under a corner. So, you know, shooting on the angle there, on the privacy booth is probably a good idea. Yes?
So you said that we shouldn't ask people who they voted for.
I wouldn't. I think that's kind of rude. But if they want to tell you, that's fine.
But what do you mean by like they want to tell you? Did they come up with you and are like?
Well, if you're talking to them and they're very enthusiastic about who they voted for, we get a lot of complaints, not just from you, but from other regular media as well, about that question. You know, it's outside of that 100-foot mark. It's First Amendment. You guys can do what you want, but if you want to have a good interaction from voters, in my history, asking things like, well, who did you vote for, is something that will put them right off. A lot of people want that anonymity. So, but if they have a Ben Walsh sticker on, then you probably know. You know, but yeah.
So like you said, we obviously can't actually they voted for respectively for them. What if they, like during our interview, they say who they voted for?
That's
Can
fine.
we use it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever they say, you know, it's First Amendment. So there's no laws about that. The only law in the polling place is display of literature or a campaign paraphernalia inside the 100-foot mark. Again, when you're talking to these voters, you're going to be outside the 100-foot mark, so everything goes. I'm just giving you what we get complaints about, which might help you interact with the voters a little bit.
And for the 100-foot mark, is it like labeled like on the ground?
Mm-hmm. No, it's not on the ground. It's usually a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that says distance marker.
Okay.
And then you'll know, once you go in there, there's no talking to voters. There's another question in the back? Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
When we walk into a polling place, do we need to like address anyone specifically?
You should
to
talk
let
to
them
the-
know that we're here to shoot B-roll?
Yeah, talk to the poll site manager, poll site captain, or if there's a gatekeeper, sometimes we have a gatekeeper at the front of the door. You just say, I'm here to shoot B-roll, show them your credentials, and that should be fine. And they may not understand what B-roll is, by the way, I do, because I've been on so many packages over the last couple of years. I've gotten to turn the mail. Last year, I was a little bit of a star last year, but yeah. So, but you explain to them that you're just going to take photos or video, and you're not going to interact with the voters, and put that at ease. Yes, back there.
How do we know who the poll site manager is?
You can just ask one of the poll workers there. I mean, the older people sitting at the table, they're going to be the poll workers. The ones by the machines, they're going to be the poll workers. Just ask them who the poll site manager is. But it's usually once you go in there that somebody's going to come up and ask what you're doing. So then you can ask them.
If any of the poll workers go outside the distance marker, are they free game as well?
Yes, outside the distance marker, if they tag them. No, yeah, but if you want to interview a poll worker, again, outside the 100-foot mark, ask. Some of them will get breaks. Again, but if they don't want to talk to you, they're there to do a job. You know, they're there to protect the vote. If they don't want to talk about it, some of them. Most of them are very, very nice. They've been doing. They don't get paid a lot of money. They're doing this because they believe in protecting the vote. So, most of them will be affable. But if there's somebody who's grumpy and not, move on to the next person.
Just one thing, if I can interject, this just occurred to me. A lot of the polling places are in schools,
Yes.
so, and you've got a camera and so forth, so don't go wandering around the school, because that's a whole different problem.
Right.
That we
Although
don't
all schools in Onondaga County, well, most schools in Onondaga County are closed on election day for students. In the city of Syracuse, all the school, it's a non-student day. So we've negotiated the last 2 or 3 years. All the BOCES in Onondaga County have designated election day as a non-student attendance day, but there are a few school districts that decided they didn't want to have off on a Tuesday, and they're ignoring that, mainly Janesville school district. So if you see kids in the hallway, that may not be a poll site you want to be interacting too much with, because they do get very nervous about that. Not nervous enough to take the day off, but nervous. Just nervous enough to yell at me about it later on. Any other questions? Yes?
What polling site has the most activity, let's say early in the morning for the 6 a.m.?
I would say Nottingham High School is a big one. That's within a few minutes. Solvay Youth Center will probably have, a lot of the suburban ones will have a lot of activity in that 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. because people are doing it on their way into work. So,
Jose, also, we, having done this a few years, we've sort of pre-selected places on the sign-up sheet. So most of the places have a pretty good track record.
yeah.
That anyone sign up.
And most of the inspectors have worked there before, so they'll know that you're there. They'll know what it's about. Yes?
In the past years, what is the biggest problem that most students have had during the election?
Students?
Yeah,
like
covering-
reporters?
like covering the
Yeah.
election, like any issues?
The biggest problem I've had is people who did not come to this class and didn't get the rules. So that's happened, and then they're trying to interact in a way that's not acceptable. That's been the biggest problem. I had one person when it was in Byrd Library who felt it was her right to be able to videotape and shoot, and she was causing a disruption, and I had to ask her to leave. I physically had to go down there and ask her to leave because she wouldn't leave. So that was a bad situation. Most of the situations that we get is, again, we've had some people wearing paraphernalia. They just don't even realize it. They're wearing like things on both sides, thinking that, I'm okay, I'm bipartisan. No, it's both have to come off. So that kind of stuff has happened. Or even like, what was happening last year, people were wearing their Obama hats, thinking, he's not on the ballot, so it's okay. Nope, that's still not okay. It's indicative of a party. It's something that could influence the vote. But what else? Parking in the wrong places. If you're driving and you're parking in the wrong place, there's handicap parking. There's voter only parking. You're not a voter. You don't get to vote in those voter-only parking spots. So sometimes we've had that issue where somebody would set up for the day and take up a whole parking space and have to be asked to move. But for the most part, this has gone pretty smoothly, at least in my time as a commissioner, so. Any other questions?
Are we
Yes?
allowed to shoot our stand-ups inside?
No, no. Because we want it to be a quiet place in there for people to be able to make their choices. So we don't want distractions in there. So no, again, outside the 100-foot mark for stand-ups. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being the fourth estate. We need that out there and to help us out. So yes, you have one more question.
Yeah, so, some of us, if you go live at one of the election, results parties, so like, what are the likelihood, of like the candidates talking to the media at that point?
Well, it depends on if they won. But if you go to the election parties, I know like Juanita's having hers at the On Center. I'm not sure. I think Ben's at the Palace. Maybe it's at the Sheraton. I don't know. I don't get to go to the parties. I'm working, so I don't know where the parties are. But it's going to be harder for you to get, because there's going to be so much media there that's live media that's actually going to air. They're going to go to that. You might have to piggyback off other things there. I don't know how many candidates are going to be able to do projects, which is what most of you are going to be doing. I don't know if any of you are going live with NCC News or anything like that. They may do that if you explain that it's going live and on TV. There's always press wranglers at those parties. They'll put you in a certain place, and you just have to ask them whether you can get an interview or not. And usually it does depend on whether they won or not. So that is usually the thing that determines whether they'll interview you. Yes.
What's normally the turnaround for results for the mayor?
Oh, that's actually a good question. We start with getting results around. They're all good questions, but that's a good one. We will start getting results around 10:15, 10:30.
Okay.
They're live. Our result. You can actually go onto our website now. There's a thing called a results caster that will also show you, and this has been the last couple of years, this will show you where the results are coming in from, so you'll know what's already reported. And you can click on each ED inside the city or inside the county or inside the race that you're looking at, and it'll show you neighborhood by neighborhood how that place voted on election day. But certified results for certifying the election won't happen until at least 2 to 3 weeks after the election. We have to go through all the bags, count all the write-ins, count all the absentees, and yes, every absentee counted, whether it's close or not. And then by December 1st, we will have the election certified.
So you have to stay in the newsroom until December 1st.
Yes, bring a lunch. All right, anything else? Well, thank you guys. Go on out there and get your stories, and I'll hope to see you on election day. Don't leave, they got more stuff for you.
We gotta get your stuff.
Thanks, Cliff.